Jim, of course, a legendary investor. Jim, can I start off by asking you why you think the equity markets are not responding to the stabilization plans that are being introduced around the world at the moment?
Because they're absurd. Jeff, we have people, if I had come on your show every week for 100 weeks in a row and everything I said to you was wrong, would you keep me on your show? Would you have any confidence in me? Would you listen to me? Mr. Paulson, Mr. Bernanke, and the guy at the New York Fed, Tim somebody, every week they have been dead wrong. Why would you listen to them? I wouldn't listen to them.
Jim, but we are where we are, and I think our audience would love to know from you what you're actually doing with your money right now, because you obviously will be seeing some opportunities here. I'm sure you've kept some of your own powder dry, but maybe you could give our audience some advice as to how Jim Rogers is allocating his capital.
Well, I have an enormous amount of cash, and I've been using it to buy more Japanese yen, more Swiss francs, more agricultural products. I mean, there's a liquidation phase going on, Jeff, where everything is being liquidated. I bought agriculture last week, and it's down this week. You know, they're selling everything in sight. But that's what I've covered. Some shorts. I covered a few shorts here today. That's what I'm doing with my money now.
Jim, at some point this has got to end, right? And at which levels in the markets would you start thinking, you know what, companies look cheap enough for me right now to get back into equities?
I'm not sure I want to buy equities when the market caves in. I don't think equities are going to come out of this on top. Normally when you have a panic, the way you make money is you buy the things where the fundamentals have been unimpaired, and they will lead the market coming out. Most equity, I mean, Morgan Stanley is not coming out of this unimpaired. So I'm buying commodities. Commodities are the only thing I know that are coming out of this unimpaired, where supply and demand is still terribly out of balance, and the Japanese yen and the Swiss franc.
There's a real feeling, at least here in Asia, of helplessness, watching what's being done in the financial markets here, the wealth destruction that's happening through no fault of their own, the Asians seem to feel, because this was a problem that was primarily a Western financial system problem. But Asia is not immune to this.
I happen to agree with you. I find it outrageous that anybody has to step in and bail out a bunch of 29-year-olds driving Maseratis. What about all the people in countries that minded their manners, saved their money, didn't get overextended, and now all of a sudden they're being asked to bail out a bunch of guys on Wall Street who were incompetent at best, and some of them crooks? I find it outrageous. But by the way, even if it's not outrageous, the way to solve this problem is to let people go bankrupt. All of this pumping money into the system is not going to save it. You see what the market is saying. The market says, we don't buy that. Let people go bankrupt, then you will hit bottom, and then you will start over. The people who are sound will take over the assets from the people who are unsound, and we will start over. This is the way the world has worked for a few thousand years.
Yeah, but Jim, we do want an orderly restructuring of the financial economy. We don't actually want to throw lots of people out of jobs because we have a liquidity problem in the global economy at this stage. And that's the issue here, isn't it? We don't want to go back to Depression-era economics just because we cannot manage an orderly deleveraging of the financial economy.
Jeff, we had the worst excesses we've had in the credit markets in world history. You think we just wake up one morning and say, oh, well, we had a horrible, horrible period of excess, and now everything's okay, we're just going to ignore that? We're going to have to take some pain. Jeff, never before in world history were people able to buy houses with no money down. Many people bought 4 or 5 houses with no money down and no job. And then they did it with cars and student loans and credit card loans. You think we just say, well, that's too bad, we're going to start over, nobody loses his job? Jeff, be realistic.
Jim, what do we need from our G7 leaders this weekend?
Well, what they need to do is, you know, go down to the bar and have a beer and leave the rest of us alone. Let the people who are sound succeed and let the other people fail. And you know, Jeff, what I'm afraid of is they're going to keep doing what they've been doing, which the market hates. You can see the market hates it, because this is going to unleash rampant inflation around the world, rampant confusion in the currency markets, and you're going to have currencies gyrating all over the world. Bond markets are going to start to collapse, and then we're going to have a real problem. And that's why the stock market understands this. They're unleashing a inflationary Holocaust, because they don't know what else to do, and they're making mistakes.
All right, and if I can just bring it back to Asia once again, because the Asian economies depend so much on what happens in the U.S. And yeah, you could let these companies go bankrupt. You could let this creative destruction take place in the Western financial system. But that's going to impact the exporters in Asia, the economies in Asia. So hence, people want to find a way to solve the problem and have this ordinary or ordered deleveraging. Is there anything Asian economies or Asian policymakers can do to help?
Well, what they should continue to do is to save their money, keep their powder dry, and try to maintain stability in their own countries. Singapore's got gigantic reserves. Why should they throw them into the breach to bail out America? They better take care of themselves. China, the same thing. Japan, the same thing. They should not be stepping into the breach to help people who made mistakes.
Let me bring in our guest host who's been staying with us very patiently there, Adrian Mowat in Hong Kong. Adrian, you've got a question for Jim, right?
Hi, Jim. I'm not quite sure if I understand this idea about inflation, hyperinflation. We seem to be in a deleveraging event, which is an amazingly fast deleveraging event, which is inherently deflationary.
Well, Adrian, when you print gigantic amounts of money and you flood the world with money, throughout history, that has led to inflation. What I said was we're coming out of this. They're setting the stage for when we come out of this of a massive inflationary Holocaust was the word I used. That's what I meant. Right now, yes, everything is being liquidated. Everything is being liquidated. It doesn't matter about the fundamentals. But that's what I was explaining too. In a period like this, the way you make money coming out of it is to own the things where the fundamentals have not been impaired.
Jim, very good speaking with you from London here. Thanks so much for giving us your time this morning as we try and address exactly why these equity markets are down so heavily in the Asian sector.